What if I told you that you've been robbed? Not by a guy in a ski mask, not by some hacker overseas, but by the system that was designed intentionally to take money out of your pocket so slowly that you'd never notice. Over the last 20 years, if you've been a responsible saver, putting money in your 401k, keeping cash in your savings accounts, doing all the safe things, you've probably lost $250,000 or more. And you never knew it was happening. Hi, I'm Jay Scott, and I'm from Montana. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not from Wall Street. I'm just a guy who woke up at 57 years old, ran some numbers, and realized I'd been lied to my entire life. And today I'm going to show you the same numbers that woke me up. Here's what I need you to know up front. I'm not going to sell you anything in this video. No course, no product. I'm just going to show you the math that changed how I see everything about retirement planning. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your safe retirement savings haven't kept pace, even though you did everything right. And you're going to see what the real problem actually is. Hint, it's not that you didn't save enough. This video is for people who've had that nagging feeling, you know the one, where something just feels off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. If you've ever thought, I did everything right, I did what they told me to do, so why am I still behind? Well, this is for you. If you still believe the financial system has your best interests at heart, well, this video might be uncomfortable. Fair warning. So let me ask you something before we dive in. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but still falling behind? Yeah, me too. Now let's talk about why. Let me take you back to 1971. Now that's the year that everything changed, and almost nobody alive today realizes it. Before 1971, the US dollar was backed by gold. There was a limit to how many dollars could exist. Every dollar in your pocket represented a tiny claim on something real. Then on August 15th, 1971, President Nixon went on television and announced that the dollar would no longer be backed by gold. Now, they said that was temporary. Just a little adjustment. Nothing to worry about. Well, that was over 50 years ago. What happened after that? The rules of money completely changed, and nobody sent you the memo. Before 1971, saving money actually worked. You could put dollars in your savings account, and over time, those dollars would be worth more because there was a limit on how many could exist. After 1971, the government could print as many dollars as it wanted, and boy, did they. Here's the thing that made me furious when I finally understood it. The Federal Reserve has one main job, managing the money supply. And for the last 50 years, their solution to every economic problem has been the same: print more money. Recession? Print money. Banks failing? Print money. Pandemic? Print money. And every time they print more money, what happens to the dollars that you've already saved? They become worth less. This is the M2 money supply. That's the total amount of dollars in existence. Look at this chart. Now, from the founding of America all the way to 2000, over 200 years, the total money supply grew about 4.5 trillion. Then from 2000 to 2020, it doubled. And from 2020 to 2022 alone, they printed another 6 trillion. Let that sink in. In just 2 years, they created more dollars than existed the first 200 years of American history combined. So here's the question nobody asks. If the supply of dollars has exploded, but the supply of things that you can buy, houses, cars, groceries, hasn't exploded at the same rate, what happens? Prices go up, obviously. But here's what this really means for you. Every dollar you saved is now competing with trillions of new dollars that didn't exist before. The game wasn't broken, it was designed that way. The system is set up to benefit people who borrow money because they get to pay back their debts with cheaper dollars later. And who loses? Savers, people who did the responsible thing. You were right to feel like something was wrong. You weren't crazy. You weren't imagining it. The rules were changed and nobody told you. Now I know what some of you are thinking right now. Okay, Scott, this is scary, but at least I have Social Security. That's my backup plan. That's the safety net. Well, I thought the same thing. Then I got my Social Security statement in the mail last month, and I want to show you what I found. Right there on that statement, it says your benefits are protected from inflation. They use something called COLA, cost of living adjustment. Every year, Social Security looks at the inflation and adjusts your benefits to keep up. Sounds great, right? Here's the problem. The COLA adjustment is based on the government's inflation numbers. The same CPI number we just talked about, the one that says inflation is 3%, when your grocery bill says it's 10%. So let's do the math. Last year, Social Security gave retirees a 3.2% COLA increase. The government said, good news, your benefits are keeping up with inflation. But real inflation, what you and I actually feel at the grocery store, the gas pump, the pharmacy, well, that's closer to 8 to 10%. So that 3.2% raise, it was actually a 5 to 7% pay cut in real purchasing power. Every single year. The same invisible theft happening to your savings. It's happening to your Social Security too. And here's the part nobody wants to talk about. The Social Security Trust Fund, the money that's supposed to pay for your benefits, is running out. This isn't conspiracy. This is from the Social Security Administration's own trustees report. They project the trust fund will be depleted around 2033, maybe 2035 if we're lucky. When that happens, if Congress doesn't act, benefits automatically get cut to about 77% of what they were supposed to be. Now think about that. If you're 55 today, you'll be 63 when this hits. Right there, when you're counting on Social Security the most, it might get cut almost a quarter. So let me ask you, is that safety net as safe as you thought? This is what I mean when I say the game is rigged. Your savings are being stolen by inflation. Your Social Security is being stolen by the same inflation. And the fund itself might get cut on top of that. The things we were told to count on, they're all leaking. That's why I stopped asking, how do I save more? And I started asking, what asset can actually outrun this? Which brings us to the real question. I want to tell you about the moment this became real for me. I was 55. I'd left corporate America and was running my own business. I had about $200,000 in an IRA that I'd rolled over from my 401k years earlier. I remember thinking, at least I have that. That's my safety net. But I hadn't really looked at it closely. The statements would come and I would check the balance and I'd think, okay, it's growing. Some years it was up 7%. Some years it was flat. One year it went down. Average over time, maybe 2 to 3% when you factored in the bad years. But here's the thing. I never did the math on what that actually meant. So one day I found this retirement calculator online. Simple spreadsheet. I plugged in my numbers, 200,000, 7% average return, being generous, 15 years until I'd be 70. The number that came out was about $550,000. I stared at that screen. $550,000 after 15 more years of letting it grow. What's that, maybe 8 years of living expenses if nothing goes wrong? No major medical bills, no inflation, no emergencies. And that's assuming a 7% return, which I wasn't even getting. I felt sick, actually physically sick. That night was the first time I couldn't sleep. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, doing the math in my head at 3 a.m. What if I work until 72? What if I cut expenses? What if the market does better than 7%? So many what ifs, and none of the numbers worked. But here's what I didn't understand yet, and this is the part that really made me angry. That $550,000 in 15 years, it sounds like growth. It sounds like my money's working for me. But it's a lie, because it wasn't accounting for inflation. Now, the government tells you that inflation is 2 to 3%. That's the CPI number that you see on the news. But that number is, well, let's say optimistic, and they're changing how they calculate it over the years. They do substitutions. Oh, steak is too expensive? People will just buy chicken instead, so we'll count chicken. They use tricks to make it look even better than reality. The real inflation rate, what economists say is the shadow stats, well, that's what you feel when you buy groceries and gas. And it's closer to 7 to 10%. Some years it's higher. When you combine that real inflation with the money printing that we're talking about, your safe investments aren't earning 7%. They're losing. Because even if your account shows a 7% gain and real inflation is 8 to 10%, you're going backwards every single year. Let me make this real. If you had $100,000 in a savings account in 2005, just sitting there, being safe, what would that buy you today? The dollar has lost over 40% of its purchasing power since then. So your $100,000 in terms of actual buying power is now worth $58,000. You didn't touch it. You didn't spend it. You did the responsible thing and you saved it. And it evaporated. Now imagine that same $100,000 in a safe investment earning 4% per year. After 20 years, your account shows $219,000. Looks great, but adjust for real inflation. You've got maybe $100,000 in purchasing power. You ran in place for 2 decades. That's not growing. That's treading water while the ocean rises around you. This is what I call the invisible theft. Your 401k statement shows a number going up, but the purchasing power of that number going down. It's like being on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. You're running as hard as you can. You're technically moving, but you're not getting anywhere. Actually, it's worse than that. You're falling behind, slowly, invisible, every single year. When I finally understood this, I stopped blaming myself. I stopped thinking, I should have saved more. Because it wouldn't have mattered. The game was rigged before I even started playing. More savings, well, that wouldn't have fixed it. Harder work wouldn't have fixed it. The problem wasn't my effort. The problem was where I was putting my effort. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. When I started looking for alternative ways to actually stay ahead of inflation, I kept hearing about things like crypto, real estate, commodities, things that felt risky. And my first reaction was, no way, I'm too close to retirement to take risks. I need safety. But then I realized something that completely flipped my thinking. There are 2 types of risk, and I'd only been seeing one of them. Type 1, visible risk. This is volatility, the stuff you can see on the chart, the stock market going up and down, Bitcoin dropping 50% in a year, real estate prices crashing. It's scary because it's obvious. You watch your account balance swing and it feels like danger. Type 2 is invisible risk. This is erosion, the stuff you can't see on the chart. Your purchasing power slowly disappearing. Your safe investments losing to inflation year after year. It doesn't feel like danger because nothing dramatic is happening. The line on your account goes up slowly, but the value of that line going down. Here's the thing. We're trained to fear type 1 risk, the visible kind. We're trained to ignore type 2 risk, which is the invisible kind. And that's exactly backwards. Think about this. If you stay on the safe path, savings accounts, bonds, conservative funds, what happens? Guaranteed loss of purchasing power every year for the rest of your life. It's not a risk, it's a certainty. Now, if you choose a more volatile path, something that can actually outpace inflation, what happens? Maybe it goes down sometimes. Maybe it's uncomfortable to watch, but over time, it has a chance of actually growing your wealth. So let me ask you, would you rather have guaranteed slow failure or uncertain potential success? Because that's the real choice. That's what they don't tell you. The safe path isn't safe at all. It's just slow motion failure with good marketing. I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm not saying to throw your life savings into something like a meme stock. What I'm saying is once you see the invisible theft, you can't unsee it. And staying in safe investments isn't avoiding risk. It's choosing a different risk, one that's guaranteed to hurt you, just slowly enough that you don't notice until it's too late. So which risk would you rather take? The one you can see and prepare for, or the one that's already stealing from you while you sleep? So if the safe path doesn't work for people our age, what does? Here's how I think about it now. Imagine you need to drive from New York to LA. You got 24 hours to get there, and someone hands you the keys to a minivan. Now, there's nothing wrong with minivans. They're reliable, they're safe, they're comfortable. But can a minivan get you from New York to LA in 24 hours? No, it's just physically impossible. The vehicle isn't designed for that. You could be the best driver in the world. You could push that minivan as hard as it will go. You could do everything perfectly, and you still wouldn't make it because the vehicle wasn't built for the job. That's what most people are doing with their retirement savings. They've been handed a minivan, conservative investments, target date funds, 60/40 portfolios, and they're told to catch up. Both those vehicles were designed for people who started at 25 and have 40 years to grow. If you're starting late or you're behind and you've got 10 to 15 years, you need a different vehicle. The financial industry has one playbook. Start early, contribute consistently, let compound interest do the work. Stay the course for 40 years, and if you follow that playbook perfectly from age 25, it works. But what if you didn't? What if life happened? Kids, medical bills, divorce, job loss, business failures. What if you're 50 or 55 or 60 and you're looking at that retirement calculator and thinking, this isn't going to work? The industry doesn't have a playbook for you. They just say save more, cut expenses, work longer. That's not a strategy. That's a surrender. Here's the truth that nobody tells you. There are two types of assets in this world. Preservation assets, things designed to keep your wealth from losing value, bonds, savings accounts, conservative funds. They're the minivan. And there's catch-up assets, things designed to grow faster than inflation, things with real upside. They're volatile, yes, but they can actually get you where you need to go. If you're behind, if you're trying to catch up in 10 to 15 years, you're not going to get there with preservation assets. The math just doesn't work. Here's the crazy thing. Nobody explained this to me. Not my financial advisor, not the retirement planners, nobody. They all told me to stay the course, keep contributing, diversify. But they never asked the basic question, what vehicle do you actually need to reach your destination? It's not about working harder. It's not about saving more. It's not about cutting your daily coffee. It's about whether you're in the right vehicle for your journey. And if you've been in a minivan this whole time, wondering why you're not making progress, now you know why. So let me bring this all together. If you're 45 or older and you feel behind on your retirement, I want you to hear something. It's not your fault. You didn't fail the system. The system failed you. The rules were changed in 1971 and nobody told you. Your safe money has been stolen by inflation, slowly, invisibly, every single year. The advice you were given was designed for 25-year-olds with 40-year timelines. And you've been trying to win the race in a minivan. You don't have a retirement savings problem. You have a wrong asset problem. You've been trying to catch up using assets that were mathematically designed for slow, steady preservation growth, not for catch-up. That's the diagnosis. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you accept it, everything changes. Because instead of asking, how do I save more, which is basically asking how to pedal harder in your minivan, you start asking, what vehicle do I actually need? That's a different question. And it has different answers. But I know what you're thinking. All right, Scott, I get it. Inflation is stealing from me. Safe isn't safe. I need a different vehicle. But what vehicle? What's the actual answer? And that's exactly what I'm going to show you in the next video. And here's what we'll cover. I'm going to show you the specific type of catch-up asset that changed my entire trajectory and prove that you can understand it in about 60 seconds. I'm not talking about some complicated trading strategy. I'm not talking about options or Forex or any of that requires a finance degree. I'm talking about something so simple that I was embarrassed that it took me so long to understand. If you've ever thought, I'm not a tech person, I'm too old to learn something new, the next video is specifically for you, because the thing that's holding you back, it's not that this stuff is too complex. It's that no one ever explained it in a way that makes sense for people our age. I'm going to fix that. So here's what I want you to do right now. First, if this video made you think differently about retirement, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be putting out more content specifically for people 45, 50 and older who are behind and they're tired of advice that doesn't fit our situation. Second, drop a comment below. Tell me, what was your 3 a.m. question? The one that keeps you up at night about your retirement? I read every single one. And third, watch the next video. I'll link it right here when it's ready. That's where we're going to get into solutions. Remember, you don't have a savings problem. You have a wrong asset problem. And wrong asset problems have solutions. I'm Jay Scott, and I'll see you in the next one.